Well, I have finally seen James Gunn's Superman movie, and in case you're wondering why I'm standing up like this, it is so that I can flex this shirt that I bought for the movie for like $15 at Walmart. Yes, it is true. I have finally seen James Gunn's Superman movie, and this movie was on my highly anticipated list for the year 2025. Just because I don't know, I'm not really much of a DC fan, if I'm being honest here. Um, I do check out the occasional DC movie every now and then, like Shazam that came out back in 2019. Then there was Black Adam, which was 2022, I'm pretty sure, and then which other ones? I've seen Blue Beetle, which I thought was also pretty solid. But yeah, when it comes to the main DC movies, Batman versus Superman or Man of Steel or things like that, never really got into those movies specifically. But ever since 2019 when Shazam came out, that was really when I first started getting into the DCU, or I guess called DCEU at the time, because I actually found that movie pretty enjoyable. I was looking at the trailers and everything, and I was like, oh, this movie looks like it could be fun. And sure enough, I did have a pretty good time with it. Then the sequel rolled around for Shazam around 2023, I'm pretty sure, which was, it was still a pretty decent movie, but not really as good as the 2019 movie was. But yeah, when this Superman movie was first announced, I was kind of just like, okay, new Superman movie, I guess that's pretty cool. But then it was announced that James Gunn was going to be the writer and director for the movie, and I was like, oh, that actually sounds pretty interesting because I did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies that he directed for Marvel, and there were some other movies that he made that I thought were pretty alright, but never really seen the entirety of it. There was this one movie that he didn't really direct, but he produced. It was called Brightburn or something like that, and I've seen clips of that movie, and I thought it was an okay movie, or I think it's an okay movie by the looks of it, because I haven't seen the entire thing. But yeah, anyways, I did like James Gunn from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and so when it was announced that he would be writing and directing, and also being the head of DC, of the new DC, I was kind of like, oh, that's actually pretty interesting. So I guess I'll give this Superman movie a shot. Then all the trailers started coming out, and I was like, oh, this movie actually looks like it can be pretty decent. I didn't think it would be the greatest movie or anything like that, but when it was revealed a couple days ago that it debuted to a 91%, when I saw that, I was like, holy moly, this movie better be peak, because ain't no way to debut to a 91%. That is ridiculous. Right now it's at an 86%, but I was just like, holy moly, I guess this movie is peak then. And I also went ahead and bought a pair of shoes for this movie as well. Not, I didn't only buy the shoes for the movie, I bought shoes because I like them, and also because they matched, Superman, obviously, with the blue and the red. You can't really see the red, but it's, right there. And then the yellow, obviously, for Superman. But yeah, I didn't just get one shoe, I got two shoes. I just didn't feel like bringing out both of them. But yeah, I did get that pair of shoes for Superman along with this shirt. Now, I was thinking about buying the regular shirt for Superman, the blue, the yellow, and the red shirt, because they do have a DCU shirt that has the regular blue coloring. This is obviously a darker blue, but they obviously have the regular blue coloring that Superman has with the lighter blue, and then it has the yellow and red logo. But I went to go purchase that on the DCU shop because it was only $25, and I was like, oh, that's actually not a bad deal. But it was, with shipping, it was $48, and I saw that, and I was like, I'm gonna have to pass on that because I don't feel like spending $48 on a single shirt. So I went to Walmart because I was at Walmart the other day, and I seen that they had Superman shirts and things like that. So yesterday I went to Walmart and I went ahead and bought this shirt because I knew that they had shirts there. And this is an official DCU shirt because it had the DC name tag and everything. And so I went ahead and bought it, and it was only $15. So that was a pretty decent deal. So yeah, I wore this and those shoes to the movie. So that is what I wore to the Superman movie. And overall, I do think this movie was pretty solid. If I had to rate it, I would maybe give it a 7.5 out of 10. I do think this is a solid start to the DCU, but there's one strange thing that they made, or a choice that they made for this movie, and that is this movie doesn't really have like a natural start to it, as you could say. It kind of just starts, if you know what I'm saying. Like, basically shows the logos and everything, and then the movie just kind of immediately goes right into it. Because if you've seen that clip where it's like that 5 minute extended preview of Superman crash landing and then getting Crypto's help, obviously, and then going to the Fortress of Solitude where he gets like the sun, like shined onto him or like beamed onto him. That is essentially the opening of the movie, because the start of the movie has like this snowy landscape to it, and it has like this little mini history lesson of the DCU, because James Gunn has mentioned that this DCU is obviously already established, so there's not like a origin story for Superman or anything like that. We are just immediately thrown into the movie. So the start of the movie kind of feels like it would be somewhere in the middle of a movie, if you know what I'm saying. Because it immediately starts with Superman crash landing onto the snow that we've seen in all the trailers and everything, after he's already been beaten by the hammer of Bravia, because it keeps for some like random reason, it has like this thingy where it always mentions like a time frame that starts with the number 3. So there's like 3 centuries ago, 30 years ago, 3 hours ago, 30 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago. Like, it always has this like, it always starts with the number 3 for some reason. And then it says like 3 minutes ago, Superman lost a fight for the first time. Then it shows Superman crash landing onto the ground, obviously, that we've seen in the trailers. So yeah, like I said, this movie doesn't really have like a natural start. It just kind of starts. So it was a little bit weird, but overall, I do still enjoy this movie. Now, there's one thing that was like on my mind when watching this movie, and that was the engineer, because she has like a lot of like action scenes, obviously, and all that. She has like this nanotechnology power type of thing where she has like these nanobots and all that, and she can like transform with them and things like that, because she's like infused herself with the nanobots. I don't know, it was kind of a strange power, but also kind of a cool power. And she like has these blades that she like throws and all that, but they don't really do anything with her character. Like, she has a lot to do, but also nothing at the same time, because she has a lot of action scenes and things like that, but they don't really progress her character. Like, she's just kind of a character that Superman fights from time to time, but nothing happens to her. Like, basically towards the end of the movie, where Superman is fighting Ultraman and the Engineer, he's fighting them both at the same time, and like the Engineer is trying to like basically suffocate Superman to death with like her nanobots and all that, and Superman flies up into the air so he can get rid of the nanobots and like crash lands on purpose so that he can get rid of both Ultraman, the Engineer, and so that the nanobots can like, break free from him. And then they say, "Oh, she's alive, but she's unconscious." That is the last we see of her or hear of her. That is her last appearance, is when Superman hits the ground and they say, "Oh, she's alive, but she's unconscious." We don't see her again after that, because earlier Superman's fighting her and he's trying to get her to like change her mind of like being Lex Luthor's, assassin, I guess you could say. He's being like, "Oh, you don't have to listen to Lex Luthor, you can do your own thing." She's not giving a damn, she's just fighting him. And then he does the thing where he flies up in the air, crash lands, and then we never see her ever again. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're just not gonna address what happened to the Engineer, whether she's alive or dead or what she's gonna do afterwards. Nope, she's just done. Except for Ultraman, because Ultraman obviously comes back from being, obviously grand slammed onto the ground. He arises from the rubble, and that is when we get the grand reveal of who Ultraman is, and it is what we've been thinking about, and that is, it is a Superman clone. Basically, it is just David Cornsweet with like longer hair, and then Lex Luthor's like, "Oh, I was able to get a strand of your hair during a fight that you had, and that is how I got into the Fortress of Solitude." Because earlier in the movie, Lex Luthor finds the Fortress of Solitude. I guess the Engineer finds the Fortress of Solitude, so Lex Luthor goes to it, and then she's like, "Oh, it only emerges if Superman's there, so how are you going to get in?" And he's like, Don't worry about that. And then he just walks up and then it opens, and I'm just like, oh, okay then. But it's later revealed that he had a strand of Superman's hair, so that way the Fortress of Solitude detected the strand of hair that Lex Luthor had, so it allowed him to enter the, Fortress of Solitude. So then when I found that out, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess. But yeah, there's also this part in the movie that I thought was pretty nice actually, and there's this message that Superman has from his parents where they're telling him that, oh, they're his son and that they love him, things like that. He finds it comforting, but the second part of the message was damaged in the crash land when he landed on Earth, and so he never heard the second part of the message, just the first part where they were like, oh, we love you and you're our son and this and that. And then Lex Luthor, when he gets into the Fortress of Solitude, has the engineer hack into the files and is able to get the second part of the message. And the second part of the message is that they're like, oh, you need to conquer Earth because people are weak and they can't, defend themselves. So you gotta, like, repopulate with Kryptonians and things like that. And so you gotta, like, basically conquer Earth. And Superman sees that because Lex Luthor obviously releases it to get Superman like defeated, because Lex Luthor is the number one Superman hater. Like, nobody is more of a hater than Lex Luthor. Like, this man does everything to try and bring Superman down. Like, he is the number one hater of Superman, because every time Superman is like winning or something like that, or people are liking Superman, Lex Luthor is just there hating, and it is the funniest thing ever. Because even when like Lex Luthor is like defeated, he just starts crying, and it's just like, it's the funniest thing because he's just hating. That is all he does. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities, nothing like that. He's just a hater. Anytime Superman is like defeated, he's sitting there clapping, cheering, hugging everybody. And then when Superman starts winning and everyone starts loving Superman, he just gets angry and starts calling people stupid and just starts throwing things. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, he sees the second part of the message is that his parents are telling him to conquer Earth and everything like that. So everyone's looking at Superman like, oh, you're kind of an asshole because you're trying to, conquer Earth and everything like that. And Superman's like, holy moly, this changes everything, because he obviously thought his parents like loved him and everything, which I guess they still do love him, but they just want him to conquer Earth, which is why they sent him to Earth so that he could conquer it. And so that kind of gives him like a mini existential crisis where he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Because I thought my parents loved me, but they want me to conquer this Earth, but I don't want to conquer Earth. I want to protect it, and things like that. And so I thought that was a pretty nice moment in there. And the Justice Gang in this movie is interesting because they don't really have, well, they all are pretty dang cool, because you have Green Lantern, you have Mr. Terrific, and then you have Hawk Girl. But Hawk Girl, I think, is the one who gets the least to do out of the three of them. Because Green Lantern, he has his moments and things like that where he does do pretty cool things. He obviously helps the kid who is like holding the Superman flag and is waiting for Superman to arrive. But then when you think, oh man, Superman's not going to show up because he's got to stop this like rift that Lex Luthor is causing to open, Green Lantern shows up and saves the kid, and he's like, well, Superman's busy with his whole rift thing, so we are here instead. So that's a pretty cool moment. And then Mr. Terrific has this moment where he helps Lois Lane because she wants to go help Superman and find him and things like that. And then Green Lantern and Hawk Girl are all like, oh, we can't really do that. It's not really, we don't really feel like doing that. So she's like, all right, I guess I'm going to go do it by myself. But then Mr. Terrific is like, you know what, maybe I'll help you because, we do have to do the right thing and help people and this and that. So yeah, Mr. Terrific ends up going with Lois Lane to help find Superman. But yeah, Hawk Girl doesn't really do anything in this movie, if you know what I'm saying, which is unfortunate because it's Jesus Christ, it's Isabella Merced. So you would think that she would have more stuff to do, but unfortunately, she gets the short end of the stick out of the three members. But she does do at least something, because there's a part in the movie where the Bravia leader is like saying, "Oh, you're not gonna kill me. You're good guys, And then she's like, "No, I ain't. I'm not like Superman," and she just drops him to his death. And so yeah, that ends up happening. Yeah, overall, I did like the Justice Gang. I also liked Metamorpho, who's like this dude who can make like any like liquid or anything like that, or any type of like matter appear from his hands. So he's able to make like kryptonite, and then he's able to make like this mini sun that Superman can use to heal because he was using the kryptonite on him earlier. Yeah, overall, I did think this was a pretty decent movie. Like I said, give it like 7.5 out of 10. I do think this was a pretty strong start to the DCU, and honestly, can't really wait to see what happens or what's next for the DCU. I think the next movie is actually going to be Supergirl, which comes out next June, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure it's June 26th is when that movie comes out. And she actually appears at the end of Superman, at the end of the movie, after everyone's been defeated and this and that. She has a small cameo where she comes to pick up her dog. And I thought that was a pretty cool moment as well, because it was like, holy moly, Supergirl. Like, I wasn't expecting to see her in this movie. She's obviously played by Millie Alcock. She comes to the Fortress of Solitude to pick up Crypto, because Superman was just looking after Crypto, because it's obviously Supergirl's dog, it's not Superman's. But yeah, anyways, I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. We are only 87 subscribers away from 700. We're at 613. So you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. And you guys can let me know what you thought of Superman. Like I said, I thought it was a pretty decent movie, a pretty strong start to the DCU. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next with Supergirl and then Batman Brave and the Bold, obviously. And then I think that's all the confirmed movies we got. Oh, we got the Clayface movie. And I think that's pretty much it as of right now for DCU movies. But I'm looking forward to the rest of the DCU because I did enjoy Superman. I just kind of wish it had a bit more of a natural start to it rather than starting what kind of felt like the middle of the movie, if you know what I'm saying. But overall, it was a pretty enjoyable movie. I did like David Cornsweet as Superman, and I did like Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, who I mentioned was just hating the whole time. I thought there was going to be like a moment where he would finally, be like, all right, Superman, you win, screw it. Nope. He was just crying and being like, damn, he got my ass. Yeah, anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.